This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Saints Pod. My name is Greg, once again today joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host Zach. Mate, nice win at home to kick off the home season. How are we feeling?
Yeah, good. Really good. I know that it wasn't the prettiest of games, but history wasn't exactly on our side against Stoke. And there were a lot of worries, about the fact that their keeper is one that we have struggled against at St Mary's, always puts in a bit of a blinder. And yeah, I think that it was tough, and I think it proved why I kind of worry about this plan to just sell literally all of our players and run with a squad of 15, because our bench is just really good. The fact that we've had our Larin backup actually come good and score at home on his debut at home in a similar way to Larin.
Such a good goal as well.
We've had the return of Prime Azaz with some of the most beautiful through balls I think I've ever seen. We've had, some sort of surprise appearances, I guess, from Nathan Wood and Matsky once again being kind of forced into that central midfield role that, regardless of every look, I said that he and it was true. He did play in that role when he played for FC Tokyo. I don't think he suits it now, Greg.
I disagree. I think he did really well. I mean, it's easy to jump to jumping in maybe slightly too aggressively for the start of the play that led to the goal. But actually, I think he was genuinely very solid in that position. He put himself about. He made himself dangerous. He didn't struggle with the physical side of it at all. He managed to blast one over, but to be fair, he didn't really have much of a choice.
To be fair, that is, if he has a trait for Football Manager or FIFA or whatever, that is a trait that he would have, which is, I'm going to take on this impossible shot. And a couple of times it paid off last season. So I'm never really going to complain about players having a pop.
It wasn't as ambitious as Jack Stevens' effort, so
but
it was at least in the box. So,
I can understand that. With potentially Taylor Harbour-Baddis out the door, we're going to need a defender to step up and start scoring the goals that Taylor Harbour-Baddis would score.
Look, right up until the point I saw the ball leave Jack Stevens' foot, I had the same vision in my head that I presume he did of that cruising top bins and the entire stadium erupting.
We all have visions of that. I guess what we should actually do though, but yeah, to summarise how I'm feeling, mate, really good. But we should start properly at the start, right? So let's talk about lineups.
There's one big talking point, I suppose, right?
Yeah. Shall we tackle the elephant in the room?
Yeah.
Press conference Friday. Oh, you know how he played. He played really well that time that, he struggled last time in January. He'll be back and he'll put in a good performance tomorrow. Proceeds to not play, I'm guessing due to headspace, and I think that
he said in the post-match presser that it was down to the public noise. But if we're being honest, it's because he's out the door, right? He's kind of they've put in a bid that's going to have been high enough to at least accept conversation, right? That both teams feel like there's a point that they're going to be able to agree on. And, it's come out in the press that he's happy to go to Villa, and why wouldn't he be, apart from maybe looking at them play today? But, they're in the Champions League this year. They've got European football. They should be competing in the Premier League.
Does that make them take a second guess, though? Because, I like Taylor Harbour-Baddis. I think that he's been a really influential player for us. I don't know if he's quite at the level of Champions League, Premier League defender yet. And is that what they're going to go out of their way for?
You forget that it wasn't that long ago that he was getting called up for the England squad as well. I think that he's and especially in the tail end of last season, we saw a lot of the parts of his game that were a concern him really grow out of. He really matured as a player as the season went on, and
maybe it's just me being bitter, I guess. But
I hold no ill will for making that move if he makes it. How could you, right?
I can't resent a player for wanting to play Champions League football and the Premier League in a team that is really strong with a really, famously good manager alongside some, quite big names. I think they're already showing that they have struggled from being pilfered this season in a similar way, right? They lost Tielemans to Manchester United, who we'll talk about that another time, and that's another funny segue for this weekend. But I think, I think because of the fact that the last time round this happened, and even with the sort of noise around Benfica and stuff, it didn't really seem to affect it. This has, and I think this has is because you're right.
I think it's just further down the line, right? It's potentially happening real soon, and you can't hold that against him. And the thing is, if it does fall through, and he does end up staying as a Saints player, then I fully believe that he is the sort of player that will still just go out and give it 120% every game, because that's what he strikes me as the sort of player that he is.
And he'll get a slap on the wrist from his father-in-law, mate.
Exactly, right. You don't win over that family lineage without that sort of level of dedication and aggression. So, I think it's fair enough. And to be fair, Nathan Wood really stepped up into the role. If you excuse the goal, because it's not just Nathan Wood's fault, there were 4 other players who stood and watched it.
Anyone could have cleared that ball. Literally anybody. I've already seen some criticism for Peretz, which is just insane. Because I'm like, what was he?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if you look at, you've got 4 defenders in front of you.
Any of them, just stick a foot out. Right?
That was all that was needed. All that was needed was anyone to be aware that ball was coming in. And get rid of it, and it was dumb, and it just made the game more painful than it needed to be.
But other than that, I think Nathan Wood had a very good, very solid game. I thought he really stepped up and really put a kind of performance in that is a statement of, I want to be the first choice centre back, whoever we bring in. I want to be the name on the team sheet. And
this is the thing, because I worry about, obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that say that we need to replace Taylor Harbour-Baddis immediately, which I understand, and I agree with. But I also think I don't really understand what the point of having Quasi is at the moment, personally. I don't understand if we haven't sold him or he's not on loan, why we're it's almost like a collective, we've forgotten he's here, is how it feels to me, personally. Just the way that people kind of is it just he's not good enough? Is that what people think? Is that what you think?
No, I think he is potentially good enough. I think that he's lacking in experience and maturity in a lot of areas that especially the way that we play our centre back need.
How are you meant to get
I have concerns about a potential lineup of Quasi and Wood, right? Less so Quasi and Stevens. But I think I don't know. I don't really have or haven't really formulated a clear-cut reason in my brain of why that is, but my brain sees it and thinks, I don't know about that. Maybe it's because we saw some of that under Will Steele last season and it wasn't great.
I think it's going to be hard to replace with so little of the window left, and I don't really know where we're going to go from. Obviously, one of the centre-backs we were linked with for 5 minutes disappeared. Under our nose to Burnley, who also didn't have a great time.
We'll sort it in due course, mate. You got, at the end of the day, this is the problem with the transfer window continuing into the season, is that until it's done, it's going to be what it'll be, and there's probably several things in motion that we just don't know about because that's the nature of it. But
we talked about this.
At the end of the day, it is what it is.
About this previously, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to keep cutting you off there. We've talked about this previously, where buying players and the transfer window closing when it does is frustrating. And having that deadline means that the entirety of the way that football transfers work is essentially like a house chain in the UK, which is like 17 people in a line are trying to buy the next house. So you need to wait for this club to buy this player from this club. Obviously, this is exactly what's happened with Taylor Harbour-Baddis, right? Konza has now gone. which means that they need to replace him. They looked at a player that fits that profile. That player is Taylor Harbour-Baddis. We're then going to have to look to one of the people that we want to replace with, who might not be able to move until they have decided to replace him with somebody else. And this is why it's taking so long. And I understand the frustration where I'm already seeing the sign some players meme, and you're like, guys, we need to sell half the squad before we immediately sign up everybody. And I don't think it's going to happen.
Before you go too much further into this thought, mate, it's not Transfer Thursday.
Oh, you're right.
We want a match. Let's move on and talk about the actual game and the players that are going to stay here and the players that put in a wonderful performance yesterday, because I'm still buzzing about that. So.
Right, so back to the midfield. Obviously, you've said your piece about Matchday.
Yeah, look, I think Matchday stepped up well. Downs is looking probably in the best shape. I actually read a piece that said that he'd gone away in the summer with Will Smallbone and gone to see some big name fitness coach and worked on a level of fitness, and
that wouldn't surprise me.
I think it paid off. He looked definitely in the best shape he's been in a Saints shirt. He did still get his obligatory booking though, so
well, yeah, but so did Bree, and now the fact that both of them are seeing, it's almost like are they planning suspension for the same time to go on holiday?
But Bree's booking was soft and Down's booking was a booking, so.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying, right? Maybe they jet off to Ibiza together to catch some sort of DJ set. But I agree wholeheartedly, and it I think I've talked about this before, but it reminds me of that season that Redmond came really, really good, and he went off and did exactly the same thing, where he went to a private coach in the US and basically proper through all of his for all of his efforts behind that in between the actual proper preseason. And obviously it paid off dividends because it was probably, I think that was the best season he had under us. And it's nice to see him kind of get over this illness problem.
Yeah.
It's not the season.
Great. Put himself about in midfield, covered it incredibly well, was the first to sweep up and tackle in many occasions. And of course, got the assist for the early goal with an incredible through ball to Carl Aaron. Which,
100%.
Yeah, who continued to nutmeg the keeper in the calmest fashion I've ever seen. Just exactly the start we needed. But yeah,
agreed.
And as far as the rest of the lineup, I think we're seeing that at least at the moment, Dobbin and Cienza try and do too similar of a thing, and actually having Azaz back in and having Leo basically doubled up on the entire game, freed Azaz up to float around like he likes to do and make himself a nuisance through the middle and over on the right and occasionally overlapping Leo as well. And it made a huge difference having Azaz in. And
he was player of the match for me. Having him back full time, having him back in that role, obviously he eventually came off, but he did play pretty much the entirety of the game. And just having him back and fit after, we didn't know how long it was going to take, especially with how long he was out during the summer. Didn't basically play any preseason, haven't seen anything of him. And, for all the hot and cold and the criticism we've kind of given over last season, and not just us, across the board, I don't really understand where it's coming from, because we've seen that with him, we are clearly a stronger side. And, he showed it today.
I think it's twofold. I talked a lot last season about how some of the things that he tries to do are so on the line because of how good they are that sometimes when it doesn't work, it looks really bad. But I also think it's because a lot of the other bits that he does do incredibly well are very easily lost in invisibility. If you watch the ball the entire game, you miss a lot of the different pieces of movement he does to drag defenders a certain way or just be in positions that are causing a nuisance. So as well as, being able to play those passes and break the lines that way, he's also incredibly switched on in the sort of tactical football sense. And he will, be the component that moves a player out of the way to create the space for Leo or actually several times in the game Fellows to change the direction or go. And, Fellows had a much better game yesterday, for sure. He's really worked on mixing up, going down the line and crossing it in and cutting inside. I still want him to learned to shoot with his left foot, because every time he did cut inside, he looked for a cross or a pass, which is fine, but so many times the shots are just there for the taking.
I've told you, it's because you keep saying that he's going to score, and like you've cursed the poor guy, and like whatever accidental voodoo doll you've created of Tom Fellows, you need to, I don't know if he signed like a West Brom shirt from many years ago for one of your kids, and then that turns out that that's just like the source of this curse that you need to break because he's now a Saints player or what. But like there is, I don't know. I think that we could probably have someone extra there, but then like Adozie came on and did pretty well, and I think we should probably hopefully see more of him if he doesn't go, because he wasn't one of the ones in that list necessarily of being shopped about. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean that's the thing, right? I want to get on and talk about all of the substitutions, because I had feelings in the game that maybe in hindsight feel silly. But before we got to that point of the game with the substitutions, obviously we went 1-0 up with that wonderful goal and that fast start from Larin, just doing Kyle Larin things. And then, I don't know, we just like fully switched off for a solid 10-15 minutes. Like it went back to slow and not really on the ball and not being able to keep the ball, misplacing passes or diving in for silly challenges and not making it. And then it was just such a soft goal to concede. Like it was really daft.
Do you think, obviously, World Cup, Spygate, shorter pre-season opponents being like crap German sides and East League, do you think? I think they're potential contributing factors to. Obviously, we had a game, and then very, very quickly we've had another game, and then very quickly another game, and we're kind of. They need to build up to pace. We wanted a really, really fast start, and arguably, like 1 win out of 2 is a faster start, than we would usually manage.
Yeah,
right. So, like that's a good thing, but I do wonder if there's just like a hangover from preseason, and there's some.
I don't know if it goes as deep as that. I mean, one thing that I thought about today when I was kind of reflecting on it was actually just that it was quite hot yesterday. Like I was struggling. Right, I was struggling in the stands, and I left the stand sweating like I'd played 90 minutes with them, as I so frequently do. As you know, I tend to be fairly animated in the stands.
Yeah,
but
I'm aware.
But it was hot, so I just think I think we got the goal, good. Like just that moment of relief was almost just enough to.
Switch off
almost subconsciously slow the game down, and it was just really silly and such a silly goal to concede. Just no one tracking the runner, no one trying to clear the cross, everyone just leaving it for each other, and it was just really sloppy and really dumb.
It was a silly goal to concede. At least it's not like an individual error like last time. But actually, I think that might be slightly worse, because you're like, I just wish someone, if someone had tripped over themselves and then they'd scored off the back of that, you'd almost feel better about it than the fact that all of them were unable to clear the ball.
Yeah, but then straight after that, we really switched back on, and we got pretty much straight back on it. And I actually think I sent you a text before half time saying it's coming, maybe not this half, but we're building back up to it, and we looked a lot better. We were keeping the ball better, and they didn't really for the rest of that first half have many chances. I think there were a couple. There was a good block from Wood that I remember, and some other just it kind of bobbling about uncomfortably and us not dealing with it particularly well, but nothing really clear cut that I can think of. And then, we come out to the second half, and the second half was such a different game, because it became abundantly clear very early on that Stoke were quite happy to play for the draw and waste every minute of time available, which, shouldn't come as a surprise, but
no,
does.
But it is frustrating that they said they were going to start cracking down on stuff like this, and it doesn't really seem to be happening in,
One of the stupidest things for me is I actually missed the bit where they said they were going to start counting down for goal kicks, but that makes sense. I like that. But he doesn't start counting down until the ball is placed. So they just take 10 minutes to put the ball down and fanny about knocking it to a defender for him to take it. And then, oh no, it's not in the right place. And then he starts counting down. I'm like, this is not doing anything, right? This is silly.
Well, yeah, it's like anything, right? Like we've previously worked in we work in software development, and when there is a rule that was in place for let's just say a team of people that we almost had some sort of weird control over, but not really. You know, you would patch a hole that could be exploited to say maybe waste time. And then immediately what happens is people realize where the gaps are and then start wasting more time elsewhere. So, like, unless you're actually going to be properly enforce it, people are going to do exactly what you've seen and go, oh, okay. Well, if they're not going to start counting until I kick, then I can just have a little waddle around and sort of have a conversation.
And then on top of that, you know, all of their players are falling over and holding their heads or holding their hamstrings. And it just led to a lot of frustration. And, you know, we saw it nearly boil over. There was a bit of a moment of handbags between Jack Stevens and their goalkeeper when their goalkeeper basically rolled the ball away from what was our free kick, and Stevens took offence to that, and the referee didn't do anything about it because referees love goalkeepers and don't punish them in any way, shape or form. Not even the least upsetting thing that the referee did in the afternoon, to be fair. It wasn't a great performance.
Yeah, I know you weren't happy with the referee.
but very rarely am, to be fair. So, but yeah, and it was frustrating. And they set out to frustrate us, and for large parts of the half they managed us, but we still managed to put together chances. One chance that sticks out in my mind was Ryan Manning, who for about 20 seconds turned into, or at least in his head, turned into some form of like Cristiano Ronaldo regen when he sat down one of their players and then tried to Trevello it into the goal. And we're just like, I really like Manning, and he's been really solid for us, but like, know your place, right? Like, you're a fullback at Southampton. Like, what are you doing?
But also, as we've just pointed out, like, you know, we're happy when Matsky does that because we're like, oh, that's a thing he likes to do. And I think that having more shots and sometimes they accidentally go in is better than when we spent I want to say about 2 to 3 years, Greg, just saying shoot the ball every game.
Maybe not trying like a finesse shot with the outside of your boot, you know, like just don't overcomplicate it. But look, I respect it. It worked. He took on the player. He got a shot away, so I can't grumble too much. But it did it from both myself and all of the people around me in the stands got an absolute look of befuddlement. Like maybe this isn't the time or place. Like you just conceded to Stoke. Like, but and then for me, about the 53rd minute, I'm like, Larin looks tired, right? He is not able to press in the same way as he was pressing for the first half.
We were talking about the fact that he was looking a bit leggy.
And Fellows slowed a bit, but then actually seemed to get a second wind and really like grew into the game. And Leo wasn't having a great time against their fullback. Although their fullback was on a
clearly carrying an injury, and I think that from what like his shoulder from when he came down the other day, right, the last game when he came down hard, and we were like, oh, and then he somehow managed to play out the first half, and we kind of like, well, surely he's going to go off at some point. I managed to play a lot of the second, but like that must be affecting him, and like that's what I think, and I think that people say no, he's not
out. And
that's the other thing is that he will get marked out now as well.
He rather uncharacteristically for him kind of threw his arms up and moaned at the rest of the team for not really giving an option at one point during this frustrating period. And I get it, right? It was frustrating. We were all frustrated. But, you know, I'm looking at that and I'm like, I just think we need changes. And I said that around the 55th minute, I'm like, we need something soon. Like, we need to inject something into the game. And I'm stood there in the stands and it ticks over to the 60th minute. I'm like, well, that's all right. That's the normal point he makes changes. It will be in a minute. Then we get to like the 68th minute. I'm like, oh, I think he's leaving it a bit late. So, like, I know that I criticised him last week for taking Larin off too early, but I'm like, he's not really having an impact here. Yeah, and immediately after I thought that, Finazaz burst on the break from the back and carried it all the way up the field And, Stoke's legs were tiring, and he played a wonderful through ball to Larin, who did a Larin thing and shot quickly, because that's what he tends to do, and the keeper pulled out a brilliant save. I couldn't fault anyone in that play. Didn't end up in a goal, but it was a shot on target. You can't ask for more than that. And I was like, oh, well, maybe he's on something. And it gets to what minute? So the 78th minute, he made the changes, and of course it's still 1-1. And I'm like, we've been down this road before, right? We're bringing on Dobbin for Cienza, and we're bringing on Mubama for Larin. And yeah, Larin was tiring, so it makes complete sense. And Cienza was tiring, so it makes complete sense. But what a horrible amount of pressure to throw them into, to come in 12 minutes and expect an impact. And what a ridiculous amount of pressure to put a young player under. It's so unreasonable of him to expect that. And it just didn't matter, mate, because they came on and bish, bash, bosh, tic, tac, bang. Karma's finishing the world, bottom corner. What more do you need? I shouldn't have worried at all.
But you got to remember, he's played in the Championship previously. He was coming up against previous opposition. Now, we know that when Finnazaz comes up against Borough, that's not usually a great performance. But he just seemed up for it. And
yeah,
I think, there was an interview with him and in the week as well. But he just seemed proper up for it. And,
in his opening interview, he very brashly said, "I'm just here to score goals." And I think that says a lot about his mentality, but also, Dobbin involved in the build-up play of this goal. It's a beautifully worked goal, just textbook, pass it in a triangle around the defender, calm as you like finish, and, much like Kyle Larin did on his home debut, just what better way to introduce yourself to the Saints fans than score an important goal? And, the Northern went wild. It was great. And Jack Stevens showed the extent of his housery that we know he's got in him as he falls over and pretends he's hurt his hamstring before laughing it off with the ref and walking away. And
it's one of those moments where I know that he got some stick last game, and I know that he has been a very we have had very Marmite opinions of him over the last couple of years. But it's moments like that you're like, man, I'm glad he's a Southampton player.
Yeah, it's great. And look, it's exactly what we love to see through the team. Look, we've relished it up until it became a meme because it went the other way when Harbour-Baddis put goggles on at the Middlesbrough defence. It's the sort of thing that we love a bit of a nibble, we love a bit of a bite, and the time wasting was egregious, and I'm glad that it came back to bite them, and I'm glad to see that the players felt that way too. And what a brilliant moment for Mubama right in front of the Northern end to get that goal, announce his rival. 100%. I'm sure that he'll start on Tuesday, and based on the way that West Ham have been playing to this point, I'm sure he'll score then as well. And, just seems to be fantastic. I mean, it's exactly the thing, right? Goals and assists for those players are what sparks the confidence. We talked about it so much last season, but they just need a goal.
Not just last season, multiple seasons. Yeah. Mate. It's been a through line since we've done this show that the way that we are able to get the goal scoring up is having that consistency and being able to score goal after goal after goal and build confidence. We have so many players that are confident strikers. Armour, for example, Archer, all those kind of players need a run, and obviously Larin managed to get his run last season, has continued it into the World Cup, and now continued into the first 3 games of the season. And obviously, the fact that Mubama seems to back himself that much, and so far has proven it in a very, very quick turnaround. But also the fact that we were able to make those changes that late and then still be able to make a difference, because you're right, it was pretty late on, and there was frustration and across the board.
And even before he scored, he also got himself in a really decent position, received a beautiful through ball, and had a shot on target, right? So he's, he was putting himself in there, getting in the right places, and then, calm, composed finish. And then, at that point, both substitutions have paid off and directly been involved in the goal. Directly after the goal, we bring on Edozie for Fellows, who then, against everyone's beliefs, contributes to the third. And
yeah, with so how offside do you think that was? You seem to think
penalty.
it was only slightly, and I looking at it again. I don't know, man. I feel
the picture, the screen cap from the highlights. I mean, it's made worse because the angle of the camera isn't in line with the pitch, right? So if you try and tilt it to the line, number 16's shoulder is kind of in line with just about Edozie's knee. So it's only really like a bit of his head and a bit of his shoulder that's actually offside. So it's tight, right? It's not a clear-cut one. That said, in real time, stood behind the goal, I went, that was offside. Didn't look like a penalty either. But on replay, it was definitely a penalty, assuming that the play was onside. I think it was pretty close, but was offside. And, inconsequentially in the 93rd minute, but not great for Stoke, their player got a second yellow card and sent off, much to the joy of all the Saints fans. And, yeah, rock, paper, scissors between Edozie and Mubama for who was going to take the penalty. So upsets Ryan Manning to slot it away.
Yeah, rewatching that clip was really funny. And he scored it. As you said, maybe having that ridiculous amount of overconfidence earlier on was exactly what you needed to have when you step up to take a penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, he puts it away, gets himself off the mark for the season, and yeah, look, it was a performance that, for a period of time, felt a bit flat and felt frustrating. Although I think a lot of that frustration comes from both the end of last season, but also all of last season, where there were lots of games like that at St Mary's that didn't end that way.
I also just think it's expectations. The expectations are so high. And the expectations are so much higher because, even looking at Hull, right? I think you might have sent me a tweet, something that was like, that's the most absolute Manchester United thing, to be beaten by a team that the only reason they're up is that, Southampton were kicked out of the playoff final, which like starters, you've just lost a whole sit down. Number two, that's a bit insulting to Hull to just assume we would have won and assume we'd have gone up because, they're a good team and they're on merit. But it is one of those things where that could have and should have, for a vast majority of the fan base, been where we should have been, right? And it's frustrating. And because of that, it feels like, if we're taking on Stoke at home, we should be winning that game. Yeah. We shouldn't be losing, our first game of the season. There's obviously a lot less, I think, time. You're already seeing, good Lord, we weren't the only ones. It was like, how long has Tonda got after last season? And it's like, it's been a game and a half. Like, we're talking about.
It's crazy.
Let's everybody calm down a little bit.
But look.
So we won. That was the main thing. That's what matters.
And other noteworthy mentions of the game is that whilst that discourse does exist in the social media spaces that we follow and watch, and obviously as people that follow the football club very closely, we hear a lot of it. But one thing that echoed around the ground before the game even kicked off was, we've got Eckert, Tonda Eckert. And that tells you everything you need to know. I mean, admittedly, he did get booed slightly later on when he didn't wave when the crowd asked for a wave. But I think that we can forgive that for the being focused on the game at that moment. But
English isn't his first language, all right?
But look,
we know that.
I fully believe in Tonda. He's shown that he's got the ability to continue to win. Right, this is a decisive victory, even though it didn't feel it for the entire game. Right, especially with the benefit of hindsight.
There's a lot of games that we won last season that we didn't feel it for the entire game. Good Lord, we were 3-0 down against Leicester.
Yeah,
exactly. At one point last season and won that game. So, admittedly, let's not, looking at where Leicester are now, maybe it wasn't actually as amazing as we thought it was. However,
the start of their downfall, really, wasn't it?
I genuinely think at that point we just passed whatever curse we had onto them. Like Russell Martin's there now. Well, what can you say? Like,
Yeah.
I look forward to them coming back up to the Championship before being slashed
honestly,
back
I
down.
was just happy to be back at St Mary's. It felt
Yeah.
like it's been such a long time. It's been more than 100 days since that Middlesbrough game, that Middlesbrough semi-final.
I think it's the fact that it's just being back. It's football is back. It's the Championship is back. Games are back. It's just it's important to remember. The other thing, the key thing I wanted to point out is, like, you spent the morning meeting a lot of the players as well. We're not even going to get into that now because, quite frankly, we don't have the time. But you did get to meet a lot. But one of the key things
up to the stadium at 9 o'clock, like we
you
were not messing around. We were excited.
You made the most of it. But it's one of those things where,
and that was it would have been earlier if my daughter had her way.
I know, but it's one of those things where the realities of social media and what's been made of, you know, this whole thing and all the build up, and also almost how like the games are treated and all this. It's all none of it's reality, right? When you rock up and you start chatting to people and they're like, "Oh, I can't really wait for the season to kick off. Hopefully, Larry gets a couple more goals. He was really good for us last season." All of a sudden, all these like massive long tangents of Discord and threads where people just get completely like lost in the source, go away almost immediately, and you realise that it's not complicated.
A palpable positive buzz. And I learned that I'm not the most delusional Saints fan. That shout out to the one person I heard who said Damien Downs is going to get 10 plus goals for us this season. But I feel like that, even by my standards, is a stretch.
Yeah, like with you as well, you know, I know that you are unbelievably positive and optimistic and can sometimes be brought crashing down to earth, but there are always going to be people around us that's like, well, I just don't understand why we didn't win 5-0, and we're like, it's just what?
Look, it was brilliant. Like there were people there giving over like handmade cards to the players, just so excited to be back. That in itself had to be a boost for the players. The atmosphere at the ground at the start of the game was fantastic. It did calm down, but it was hot. I have been at St Mary's plenty of times where the atmosphere is still a buzz, but people just don't have the energy to actually sing at the top of their voices for 90 minutes. So there are lulls where like they recover and take on some water. But you know, at the key moments, we were in full voice and it was just great. There were limbs for, you know, both those final goals, and just so many people. Like I think back to like a point of last season where we got to the 90th minute and half of the stadium had emptied after the game, just before like the end of the game, and like two of the players came over to clap the fans, and I think the quote from the podcast was, "They're just like a team of individuals. There's no togetherness about it at all." And then, like, I look at the post-game scenes yesterday, and like an entire stadium full of people cheering on, and all of the teams stood together and forcing Mubama out to cheer with the fans.
Yeah, and apparently there's all this chaos behind, like, you know, according to some people, this chaos behind the scenes that people are still really mad and salty. I think if there was one player that was mad and salty and didn't want to stay, that player left, and that player is called Ross Stewart. And you know what? I don't really blame him. I think it was an awful dark chapter for the club. I do feel that, as with time reflected, that maybe everyone went a little bit insane on what they consider to be the most evil thing going on, especially considering like the UAE government have come out and been like, well, if these Man City charges are bad, that's going to be really bad for UK and UAE diplomatic relations, which quite frankly is like an insane level of corruption. Yeah. And it's like, we had a guy with a phone. And again, like, I know that things like that are bad, but this whole like myth of apparently everything is terrible, I just don't think people are thinking about it as much as people like, and that togetherness is still there, and they clearly still have this goal. And okay, it was laboured, but it was a win, and that's what it matters.
Yeah, look,
-1, mate.
It's going to be laboured because, as we've said so many times, it's not an easy league, especially this year. Anyone can beat anyone. We're not going to steamroll many teams in this league, maybe Pompey. But
look, right as of right now, mate, Millwall are top of the Championship, so you know,
that's
Charlton are third.
West Brom are right up there as well. It's a crazy league. Anything can happen. But look, it's great. Like you say, nearly back in positive terms. And, you know, as the song goes, Samina Mina, AA, Waka Waka, AA, -4, we don't mind. Saints are going up. Might be the paraphrase filtered version anyway.
Oh, mate. Well, for starters, it's -1 now, so it's not even as much of a deficit. So
perfect.
We have to see how it pans out, and then obviously now we've got a cup game on Tuesday, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to seeing what full rotation we end up having.
And
we might actually
see
match against top
again. The league.
Exactly. So all part of the fun, isn't it?
Oh, I can't wait. Well, look, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure waffling at you about this game. It was so exciting to get back to it. I've missed it so much, and I didn't really realise how much I had missed it until I was walking out of the stadium and felt emotions that you can only feel on days where your team win. You know, like absolute pure, deepest joy that you feel, especially being as animated as I tend to be, that you've earned from from suffering through. But it was great. It was wonderful. Look, that's all we've got time for. Let us know your thoughts and opinions on the performance on the game, on the socials, or in the comments. We're Daily Saints Pod absolutely everywhere. X, Blue Sky, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. Hit us up and let us know. And while you're there, why not give us a subscribe if you enjoyed listening? It really helps us out, and we would really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about a match preview because the game's just come that thick and fast.
Woo! Makes our life easier.
It certainly does. Just think about the football. That's what we are here to do. We love it. But until then, everyone, have a wonderful day, as I know you will, riding the high of that Saints win. We will see you then.
This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.